So since the starters were announced today, not going to talk about those too much. We'll just mention them real quick. Steph Curry, James Harden is the starting backcourt, which is apparently upsetting a few people, but it's fine. Kevin Durant and LeBron James are two of the frontcourt guys, and what could be seen as a bit of a controversial decision is to have Paul George as the third frontcourt player. PG has been really damn good this year. I mean, I would have gone with Anthony Davis because I think he's just been better. But, you know, Paul George is having the season of his career, and Davis's Pelicans have been perhaps a little bit of a disappointment depending on what you were expecting of them to open up this season. And, I can see it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I don't think it's ridiculous either. Of course, Anthony Davis is going to be one of the reserves for the frontcourt position. And I don't think there's much conversation to be had here. I would consider him to be one of the 5 to 7 best players in the league, and that's pretty much it. The other frontcourt position that's very easy is Nikola Jokic, as he's been carrying his Nuggets to, I believe it's still the second seed in the West, and they've had so many injuries this season. But Nikola is just kind of a one-man offense, you know? I think there's a serious conversation to be had about him being the best passer in the league, since he doesn't have the luxury of perimeter players in terms of how much he has the ball. Anyway, the last frontcourt position, you'd think I would go with Luka if you follow me on Twitter, because I love the guy, but I'm actually not going to go with him. I'm going to go with the extremely boring pick of Rudy Gobert for the Utah Jazz. So, Rudy's offense is better now than it ever has been. He's dunking everything. He's one of the best rollers to the rim. And of course, his calling card is still defense. And even as the Jazz struggled defensively, quote unquote, through parts of the season, it was never his fault. Their defense was always elite when he was in the game. And I think that makes the case for him over someone like Aldridge, who's really been good lately, but I think out of the gate was a little lukewarm. And a similar thing can be said for Karl-Anthony Towns. We will talk about those guys later on, so don't freak out too much. If we go to the backup guard positions, Damian Lillard has to be one of them. His shooting has actually been kind of rough in January, but he was so good before that I think it's fine. I mean, you could argue that he is one of the most consistent players in the NBA year after year, and his numbers and efficiency are as beautiful this season as they ever were, so Dame is in. Now, the other guard spot's tricky. DeMar DeRozan's scoring has actually been kind of bad for about a month and a half, so that's something. We have Drew Holliday, who I think is right on the cusp of being good enough to where you start to think, even though his team has been kind of rough, maybe he can still get in. I don't know. It's a tough one if you ask me. There's also Devin Booker. If his three-point percentage was just a little bit higher, because it has taken a bit of a nosedive this season, then maybe I could get him in there. Even then, you could still be able to talk me into it. This is very close. I mean, the Western Conference is loaded with talent, and no matter who I pick, somebody's going to get upset. Some more names. There's, of course, the two Kings guards. They've been great. Perhaps we're going a little too far putting them into an all-star game this early. Mike Conley, he's been kind of normal as the Grizzlies have fallen off a cliff, so I don't know if I can do it. Derrick Rose, it's a great story. I'm happy as hell for the guy. I don't think he has a real case. I'm sorry if that makes you mad. CJ McCollum would be a much better pick if he was averaging like 5.5 assists a game, but he just isn't. And for as good as Klay Thompson has been over the last 10 games or so, the first couple months for him were not really that good. Anyway, I am going to go with Russell Westbrook, who has a true shooting percentage of 48%, which is awful. He's not making threes, he's not making free throws, he's kind of not making anything. So why do I still have him in here? Well, I think he's having a prime Jason Kidd season, which is the efficiency is awful, but everything else is good enough to where he's still a pretty big positive for OKC. The playmaking, the rebounding, the constant threat of him attacking the basket, the fouls he draws, and OKC's offense is actually kind of horrible when Westbrook is not in the game, and that includes when Paul George is in the game without Russ. So I think his impact is still pretty massive, even if the shooting numbers are as bad as they are. Now, we do have 2 wildcard spots to go. I do want to mention Tobias Harris, who's been very good for the Clippers this year. Perhaps you could also say Gallinari should be in here. The advanced stats would suggest to you that Gallo is their best player by far. I still think it's Tobias. I don't have anything really to say against him. He's been very consistent. I guess you could wish that his playmaking was a little better. I should also mention Steven Adams, because a lot of the logic that I applied to Gobert, I think you could apply it to him as well. The difference is, I just think the team around him is better. I mean, he's got PG and Westbrook, whereas Gobert does not have anyone at that level. Unless, of course, you are oblivious to Donovan Mitchell's struggles through most of this season. So I think Gobert's job is just a little harder. But one of these wildcard spots has to be Karl-Anthony Towns. I mean, the guy has been a monster ever since the Jimmy Butler trade went down, and his defense has looked better. I don't think it's to Gobert levels, so I wouldn't put him there, but it's been pretty good on top of the fact that teams have no way to defend this guy, as he's finally getting the shots that he deserves. Lamarcus Aldridge has a real case here. I think he has proven to be better than DeRozan, if you're going to pick one Spur, because his efficiency has just been so much better than DeMar's has. So he's got a real shot, but I do think if you're going to force me to pick somebody, maybe it's a little bit of sentimental value. I'm going to go with Luka, okay? I don't think this is ridiculous. I know there's the story behind this, the fact that he's the rookie and all that, but the guy has really been awesome, and I just think he's been a little bit better than the Aldridges and the Tobias Harrises of the world. And there you go. So here's a recap for you once again. Yeah, those are the All-Stars for you. And that'll do it.